On that day, I can remember we just got done getting high, and I took off driving, and then everything got blurry. And next thing I knew, I woke up, and I was being put into an ambulance, and they had said that you had overdosed. There's 2 police officers there, and they said you're under arrest for DUI, and then went to jail. So how did I get to this point? I'll tell you how it started. My parents got divorced at a young age. I think I was probably 6 years old. I would see my dad every week, but we just never really had a great relationship. We never really had, it was never really like a loving father when I was growing up. I was always looking for, through friends or through other things, for acceptance. That led into me drinking with friends. My first experience drinking, I didn't like the taste of it, but it was something that I continued to do because it was filling, I felt like it was filling a void that was missing in my life. From there, I got introduced to marijuana. It was kind of the same thing. I didn't really like it, but it was, again, it was something that was filling a void there that I was missing. I was drinking, it came into being every day, smoking every day, and then from there it just led into, got introduced to oxycodone and hydrocodone pills. I was about 15 or 16 when I was introduced to hydrocodone, and then eventually I got hooked on them, and I had to have them. I was trying to go to school at the time, I was working, and in order to get through the day I had to take handfuls of pills. That's how I started my day. I would wake up, I wouldn't eat anything, that was pretty much my breakfast. It started with one, and you would take a couple more because you're looking for the same high. And then as time progresses, your tolerance builds up. So by the end, I'm taking 20 hydrocodone or a few oxycodone just to get by and just to not be sick. It was affecting my everyday life. I was trying to go to school, but I was also extremely addicted to the pills to where it was hard for me to concentrate, hard for me to focus, because at that point my tolerance was so high that even though I would take 20 hydrocodone when I would wake up, it was a few hours later, it's like I'm looking for the next high, and so it was just a vicious cycle of, like the only thing I was looking for was the next high. And from there, I got introduced to new friends. They were doing meth, they were doing heroin, and they offered me heroin, and I tried heroin, and from there, I never took pills again. It was only shooting up heroin, and it was the same thing every single day. It was how I functioned. I wasn't going to school, I wasn't working, things were getting worse. My addiction was getting worse. So then I ended up going, with these friends, and we were pretty much on the streets, staying in hotels, motels. At that point, when you're out on the street, to kind of stay awake, well, I was doing heroin and it was making me down, right? So then I got introduced to meth. I was staying at a hotel, and I remember I just got done shooting up heroin. Looking back, I felt weird, kind of dizzy. Everything was kind of a haze, and I didn't really know at the time what was going on, but it was leading me up to an overdose. And I remember we were driving, and we got pulled over. The one person had warrants, so they took them to jail, and they let me go. Next thing I had known, I woke up at my mom's house. They were pretty hysterical because how they found me in the middle of the street, passed out in the middle of the street. And for me, I really didn't realize how bad it was. And all I could think at the time was, everything's okay. I wasn't looking at quitting or doing anything. It was literally, what am I gonna do next? There was a time when one of the apartments I was staying at, I locked the bathroom. I remember I was shooting up, and then I was done. And as I went to get up, I got really lightheaded, and I fell back. And then that's the last thing I remember until I woke up out in the living room, and there was people around me, and they were telling me, you overdosed last night. When they found me, they threw me in the bathtub, put water on me, and then there was an older gentleman there who supposedly, they said, shot me up with water. And I mean, again, from there, it was just kept going. It didn't faze me. I just kept living the life that I was doing, looking for the next high. Literally nothing changed. I think it was like 2 in the morning or something, I got pulled over. I ended up getting arrested because I had drugs on me. Went to jail. We went through court, they were able to reduce it to misdemeanors. But throughout that whole thing, I knew I wasn't done with drugs. Something inside of me, I just knew I wasn't done with it. And so with that, I ended up having to go to drug rehab just to appease the courts. I completed that, I got out, and it was within weeks or months, I was back to where I left off. I think everybody who is living that life, right? There's instances where they're like, I'm tired of this. And I would try to stop. So I'd go a week, days, usually no more than a week. If it was a week, then it was like an eternity. It was extremely difficult to get away from it all just because of how addicted I was and the lifestyle I was living, and the withdrawals were just, they were unbearable. You knew what was the answer. The answer was to go get high again, and everything would go away, and then I'll deal with it later. And it just kept going. I remember there was a period of time where a circumstance had happened where it was life-changing for me. And it was also just a point where I was kind of like, I was done with doing all the stuff that I was doing and living that life. I decided like, hey, if I want to be anybody, if I want to be good for anybody, I need to go get my life straightened out. And that's when I went to Michigan. And at that point, I got into treatment. And addiction had such a hold on my life. I went to treatment, and I actually had taken drugs with me because I was afraid to go without, and I was afraid of the withdrawals. And so I remember I had hid meth in my shoe, and I can remember the anxiety that I had while I was getting on the plane because I had to fly to Michigan. They didn't find it in my shoes, and I got to treatment. I took it for the first couple days. Then the withdrawals were coming off, and so that's when I just knew that was the time when I'm like, I want to be done. I stayed for about 30 days. I ended up leaving treatment and came back, faced the courts, and got into an Oxford house. Oxford is a program where people get into that are obviously wanting to straighten up, right? They have requirements for you, so it's to kind of get you back into society, to help you straighten up. So while I was in Oxford, someone had introduced me to HungryGen, and I went, and that is where my walk with God actually began. At first, it was really different for me. I would see deliverances, and I thought it was fake. I had never seen anything like that. And I remember telling somebody that it was all set up and it wasn't real. And then you start to develop relationships with these people, and you see the transformation in their life, and you see how it's real. You can't deny it. And so that's when I really kind of was like, hey, I want to see what this is about. I had got prayer, but I never really had an aha moment or a deliverance, a manifestation. And so, I'm wondering like, okay, why am I not? The gifts that God has given me of persistence and dedication and consistency. There was a period of time where the church opened up for morning prayers, and I would go for, I don't know if it was a year or more, and it was every single morning before I go to work, I would go to morning prayer, and that's where, God just began to really work on my mind and transform my life. Following that is when my mom ended up giving her life to Christ. My sister ended up giving her life to Christ, getting baptized. I ended up finishing my bachelor's degree, and I finished my master's degree, and I was able to finish them in a pretty short period of time, faster than normal. I was living all out for drugs and alcohol. All my money was going there, and then, it kind of flipped, and I'm like, if I can give everything that I had towards that, then I can give all of my money and everything to the kingdom and to God. And today it's been about 9 or 10 years that I've been free from drugs, alcohol. I guess you would just say free from an addiction. I don't have any desires or anything to go back to that. And it's, by the grace of God, it's completely gone. And now today I have a beautiful family. I have a wife, and we have a little boy. I'm thankful to God that He's brought me where I'm at today. I know that the best is yet to come. I'm no extraordinary person. I'm just an ordinary person that I committed myself and I gave my life to Christ. I devoted my time and my energy to really seeking God. And that's when I began to see all the transformations in my life. It got easier to not, think about drugs. It got easier to, not want to do those things. And, He's just given me strength to keep going. And so I just say that, if you're in that, to truly give God an opportunity. Don't just do it a month or 2 months, but give Him a year, 2 years. And if you're fully committed with your heart, you'll see the transformation in your life. I'm Brian Ashley, and this is my testimony.